9 people that had reached out to me after I wrote it, and they were struggling horribly. You're lucky because something changes in your life and you feel you want to live. And I can definitely feel for those that don't want to. You know, I was lucky. When you're suicidal, when you're not feeling yourself, you have times of clarity and most times of no clarity. And I was lucky enough to have clarity during the right time, and I decided I want to live. Being an Indian male, a super conservative family, like where if I'm not I'm the black sheep of my family, for sure. Maybe not now, but for sure. Why am I not a doctor?
You do things a little bit differently. I actually really admire you for, and it's one of the biggest things that I think separates you from a lot of other agents is...
I guess I'm going to keep saying this to you. Good question, because the questions you're asking are different than, you know, what we're used to hearing being on these shows and stuff.
So I have Amit here, who is one of my closest friends inside of real estate, and his team in Miami, the All in Miami group, sells north of 2 million GCI per year. In the last 28 years, he's actually sold 95.8% of his listings, which is really unheard of to sell that many in a luxury market of Miami. And he's been ranked among the 1,000 America's best, the best real estate agents in Miami Beach. But he's more known because of his priceless marketing. And in his words, he gives clients a non-traditional marketing to inspire the most motivated buyers to pay the max for luxury homes in Miami. So thanks for joining, Amit.
Thanks for having me. And I haven't been in the business 28 years, but that's the whole team, you know. Okay. I try and trick people, I guess. I'm just kidding. But it's a total of all of us.
Oh, nice. I know you've been in traditional real estate for 17, right?
Yeah, it's actually, since we spoke, it's gone up a little bit. So this is my 19th year doing this. 19. I think June will be 19 years, so 18, yeah.
So I was curious because you and I both follow Gary Vee very closely. And I remember seeing a post about your mom back, I think it was 2021, maybe 2020, where there was maybe 269 days, maybe 279, where you were apart from her because of COVID. And it was a very emotional post, and I could see you coming through with how much you really care for your mom, and obviously how much she's built you to who you are today. So I was curious because a lot of who we are today and who we become comes from how we were raised. So if I was someone looking at you from the storytelling, your ability to be empathetic, think differently, and just really who you are today, what context earlier in life would I need to know as to how you've become who you are?
Yeah, great question. So I think of life as this way. You know, we all have different experiences that we go through, and I'm going to share some of them with you, but what happens is we find the right person or mentor or something that really resonates with us, and it sort of edits who we are, right? It's like we have an editor. We have all these experiences, and we have this editor, and then all of a sudden, I'm thankfully the nice way you described me, you know? And so growing up as an Indian, you know, everyone in my family is either a doctor or married to a doctor, immediate family. My dad is a doctor, my brother's a doctor, my sister's married to a cardiologist, my wife is a doctor, my father-in-law is a doctor, my wife's brother, as you know, he's the U.S. Surgeon General, his wife is a doctor. So there are a lot of doctors. My mom was not a doctor. She was a typical business person, less educated than my dad, which she sometimes, feels bad about, but I think it made her better. Not saying that being less educated is better, but I was lucky to be brought up by two totally different personalities, and with my mom, I'm lucky. Like Gary Vee says, my mom made me sort of who I am, because she's less conservative. She's like, as far as formal, maybe is a better way, less formal. She'll just say stuff. She'll make people laugh. She'll always have like friends that are older than her. Now it's getting tough because she's 79, so that's a little bit harder. But stuff like that, and I learned from the past, from my mom telling me, like, basically just to never try and, like, don't brag. Make people feel good about themselves before you try and make them feel good about you, And it's how difficult is it to make someone feel good just by listening? If I talk to you for an hour, Andrew, and I'm listening 95% of the time, and you can tell I'm listening, you're probably going to like me more than if I'm talking the most of the time. One of the things that I learned too was, like, a lot of times a big mistake is when someone says something, as humans, we try and relate to them, and we stop their story, we add our story, and we think that makes us more relatable, but it makes them not like us, because it takes away, they have something to say, and we're making it about us instead of about them. So my mom helped me in multiple different ways like that.
So that's interesting, because, like, I found a quote of you saying what's important to you is bringing value to the consumers with zero expectations, basically just trying to help people be okay with them doing or not doing business with me. And that quote, which I think I found on your LinkedIn, also goes into what you do differently, which is you search through people's Facebooks, you find certain things, and you find ways to complement them, and you find ways to tie things back. So was that a skill that you just came up with? Was it something that you learned from your mom, or, like, where did that come from?
I guess I'm going to keep saying this to you. Good question, because the questions you're asking are different than what we're used to hearing, being on these shows and stuff. So I'll give I guess the credit. There's a friend of mine. His name is Josh Dotoli. He's in Fort Lauderdale. Younger guy. I guess a lot of people are younger than me. He's like probably early 30s. He has a real estate company. He works for Compass. Probably does over 200 million a year. Just does a lot. Most genuine, kind guy I know. And in the past, what he would do is, he would go. He left Sotheby's and he went to Compass. And one of the things that Sotheby's does is they tell about their global marketing, which they should, right? That's who they are. That's their mission statement, I guess, one of them. And they talk about it. So he had to overcome that when he went to Compass. And what he did is he looked up who these buyers were. And at least in Miami, probably 99% aren't a guy from Switzerland in his chateau or whatever trying to buy a property in Fort Lauderdale or Miami. It's a guy who's in New York that wants to lower his state taxes and is moving to Miami or California. So he taught me to find out who the people are. And for what I did, I'll take a little bit of credit, because I like social. I'm like, okay, I don't want to just know where they're coming from. I need to know who they are, because I can market better to them. So that's how it came about.
So that, like, giving mentality and that wanting to research and dive deeper kind of came from seeing what he did? Yeah,
that was, as far as, like, coming from contribution, like a Keller Williams, KW type word, I think more it was from Gary Vee, right? Thankfully, I get calls every week from agents from around the country, and I feel so humbled to get calls or text, or probably DMs and texts more than calls, asking me about a video or marketing or something. And I learned from Gary Vee, like, you give, if you enjoy doing something, how difficult is it to talk about that and help someone where it could impact their lives, right? And because of that, I was like, I guess all of these things we have within ourselves, but when you hear someone talk about it over and over and over, and you think about it a lot, all of a sudden it's not like going to the gym and think about going to the gym. It's being excited about going to the gym. It's being, it becomes a habit, and that's from him. He helped me a lot with that.
So how do you utilize that skill of finding the client, finding the buyer in your real estate business?
Yeah, it takes a lot of time, and I'm glad it takes a lot of time. So basically what I do is, if I'm going on a listing appointment and say I'm in Tampa and I'm gonna be selling someone, or Miami or wherever, and I'm gonna look in the neighborhood, I want to figure out trends more than anything. It doesn't have to be exact, it needs to be a trend, right? Like what's trending on Twitter or whatever. So basically I'll look up 20 or 30 of the last sales, depending on how many properties transfer ownership in that area. Then I look up the tax records. I know in some areas it's difficult to, and you can't, but for the most part you can. And then what I do is I will Google everyone. Some of the times, again, I'm giving you like the outliners that don't work. Sometimes there's an LLC or a company or a business, and I'll still Google them. I'll Google the people, and I'll try and find out everything I can on these 20 or 30 last sales. And then we create what's called like a buyer persona. If I'm seeing a trend of people in their 30s or 40s with kids, or people that are moving from California, I'll give you an example. In an area in Miami, in Coconut Grove, there were a lot of people moving from California that were mid-30s, early 40s, had a lot of money, wanted to save on state taxes. A lot of them were trying to live here for 6 months and a day. They found a place that they liked. It wasn't South Beachy, because someone from California, typically, depending on where they live in California, they're not trying to move here because of the beaches or the weather. They're moving here for other reasons. And looking at their social, figuring out everything we can on that, and just taking a sheet of paper, and I have a sheet of paper, and I write on it. And the reason I do that instead of using the computer or technology is, if I go to a seller's house, I can show it to them and it looks more impressive. Like I'm doing these check marks and I'm writing and there's scribbling and all that. Part of our jobs as realtors is to perform, right? When we meet someone, we have to perform, we have to create the story, we have to do those things. And if I tell someone that I spent 2 hours and 38 minutes, and if you think I'm weird why I know the exact time, is because I time it, and I spent the last 2 hours and 38 minutes looking up the last 27 sales in your neighborhood within the last year or 6 months or whatever, and this is what I came up with. And then I say, before I show it to you, I'm going to give you a pop quiz. How many doctors do you think have moved into your neighborhood? How many attorneys? Where do you think they came from? And we make it fun. I'm not going to make it like I'm talking. I'm going to get them talking. So that's where it is. It's difficult. It takes time.
So one of the biggest things as a realtor is that there's a lot of competition, because there's a lot of other choices, a lot of other realtors, and you've been known to sell homes that other realtors haven't been able to sell. And being different is a major way to kind of stand out in the market. So I was curious, has this helped you on how has this helped you on listing presentations with sellers or potential sellers, by doing this research, by knowing this walking in?
Yeah, it helps a lot. And I'll give you a couple of quick examples. Hopefully they're quick. One of them, I got a random call last week, and it had the same few numbers as my phone number. And I'm like, oh man, this is spam or whatever. And I'm just going to answer it. I'm like, hello, this is Amit. And it taught me a lesson from there, that I need to be happy when I talk. But I was like, man, what is a spam call going to be? And then this guy, he told me he looked at a sale that the team had, and he had done a ton of research on us, and he wanted us to sell a property. We had I'll give you an example. So this property is in Hallandale Beach. We had a listing on the 8th floor that had direct oceanfront view, and the market was worse than the previous sale. That was more updated. It was on the 20th floor rather than the 8th floor. It was more updated, better market, and way nicer, and we sold ours for more. And we did it based on, staging, better pictures, story, marketing to the right people and stuff like that. So this guy did all the research. He did everything. And when you're talking to someone, you have no idea what they've researched on you. So Jade on the team and I went to see him on New Year's Eve, on Saturday. And when we got into the elevator, we haven't spoken to him yet. We hadn't gone to his apartment yet. He sees two people that he knew, and he tells them that we are his realtor are going to sell his house. So there's no listing presentation. There's no nothing. You have to look at every deal you do. All the marketing that you do is going to create that. You can't think, when you don't do something differently. I tell my team all the time, try, just like what you said, Andrew, try and do things that are not easily duplicatable. Do things that are different, that make you different. And I look at every single deal, and that property is not that expensive. I mean, maybe in other parts of the country, it's $800,000. So it's okay. But I guarantee you anyone who's listening would love to get an $800,000 listing where they're in the elevator and they don't have to give a listing pitch or anything. So before I did marketing, like the way people hopefully want to consume it, I would always try and find the best listing presentation. Our business is made about people selling crap that we don't need, and everyone would pitch stuff what we don't need to try and get that listing appointment. I guarantee you, if that guy interviewed someone before us, he would, whatever listing presentation they gave, he wouldn't have hired them. He would have hired us because he spent the time researching us. And as far as, when we get listings that have expired or haven't sold. We got one recently. It's $2.75 million, and that other agent didn't spend any money. I have to look at it like we have to. I'll give you an example. So on this property, we're filming not just staging the property. The seller's paying for the staging. We're not paying for it. The seller's paying for it. We're doing great photos in our mind, not just professional photos, like photos that people would be happy if it was their wedding, those type of photos. The video, we did a 3D tour, floor plan, all that. But what we also do on these properties now is, besides shooting a regular video, we're starting to shoot like walkthrough videos where it's fun, longer. So that person that sort of, I'll give you an example of Gary Vee. If they see a short video on TikTok or whatever of Gary Vee, and they want to consume longer form content, they will. So this house, they see the short video and they want to see a longer video. They'll see that content with Jade and I just joking around as we walk through the house. And then we're also having our videographer create shorts at each property where they shoot vertically. They spend an hour or two just highlighting features of the home. So doing those things helps us a whole lot.
So there's a lot to unpack there, because it kind of just ties back to you do things differently than most do, going back to your saying of priceless marketing and non-traditional marketing, and thinking of the entire listing process, that it's not just what happened when the home goes on the market, it's everything that you do before the home goes on the market. There's the before, the during, and the after, just like a story. And what are things that you think separates you, or what do you do differently, or what do most people fail at in the listing process that they're doing wrong?
Yeah, so and I like when you say it's me, it's the team, right? It's just me. I appreciate that, though. It's everyone on our team, all these people that are helping us do things. The biggest mistake people are making is they're cheap. And when they're thinking about spending money, like the team spent on that listing, we'll probably spend $6,000 or $7,000. I'm not telling everyone to spend $6,000 or $7,000. I mean, it's a $2.75 million property, so obviously there's a decent commission. But I'll tell you this: even if it wasn't, I would probably spend $3,000 or $4,000. Even if it was a $400,000 or $500,000 property, I would spend it because I know that would get me the more expensive listing in the future. So the things that people are making a mistake, besides being cheap, is they're not. When you look at a property, you have to think of it like a movie that is coming out in the future. Just like you said, you have the trailer about what's coming on, and you don't. Even though we can't like tell about coming soon with addresses and stuff, you can still share the story about how you're excited. You can still share the story about highlight the amazing feature. You know, when developers build homes, they need to have one feature that is better than like all the other homes in their mind, right? So find that feature, whether it's a $150,000 home or whatever it is. And if you don't know, ask the seller why they bought it. They'll probably tell you what they love about it. So that's one thing. Don't like spend on some properties and not on others. You have to be a storyteller. And I'm going to pitch you, Andrew, even though you don't want me to pitch you. If you don't know how to do it, hire Andrew. He'll teach you. He'll create the story. I spoke with one of my friends yesterday, Charles Turney. This guy is a top agent in the country, one of the best. But Andrew's helping him for the last, I think, 3 or 4 years, you know? So you don't have to be good at it. I do it because I like it, you know? You don't have to like it, but you have to be different. So don't be cheap. Spend the money and like be different. Create the story, create the trailer, and also if the content does well, share it in the future. Just because you sold a home 2 years ago or 5 years ago, share the video again. It doesn't matter. It was a nice video. People liked it. People love seeing nice homes. Keep sharing it.
I want to touch on storytelling, and I want to touch on the fact that you said a lot of people will spend money maybe once, but they don't market it enough, which kind of I kind of word that wrong, but ties into my thought of like why people can easily sell a luxury home. Like they might get a luxury listing once, but it's the ability to consistently get those that I think you've mastered. But before all that, I was curious, when you think about, for example, your $6,000, your $3,000, could you kind of break that down into like, here's how I think about how I'm going to invest into the property to make sure it gets sold?
Yeah. So one of the reasons why you do it too is to share it. We have to share our story with the sellers on the listing appointment. When I go to, we get listing appointments that we turn down the listings, you know, and if you're spending the money, you gotta share with them how you're spending the money, right? So like I was taught so there's a guy named Matt Spangler. He was the CMO of Compass until recently. And one of the things that he said that made a lot of sense is we spend a lot of money creating content sometimes, but we spend no money pushing it out, right? We may spend $1,500, $2,000, $500, whatever it is, on a video or something, even if it's $250, but we don't spend $250 to push it out to the most people. And what he said, I don't think a lot of people will do, but he said, whatever you spend on the content, spend that much marketing it, you know? And that's, I mean, a lot of people aren't, because as your content gets more and more expensive, it gets a little bit more difficult to do, because you'd probably, if you're doing a $4,000 video, you may want to spend maybe $1,000 or $500 or $800 marketing it, and then that other money create another video. You know, it just depends on your budget and stuff. But as far as spending, like, so every single listing that I have, if the house allows for it, meaning there's not crap everywhere, and the more you show off the house, it doesn't make it look worse. If it's a decent house, whether it's $150,000 or $20 million, every single listing, I'm going to have a video. I'm going to have, you know, a great photographer do the photos. I'm going to do a 3D Matterport tour. I'm gonna do now. I'm gonna have, besides the drone video and stuff, a walkthrough video. I'm gonna tell the photographer to shoot some photos in vertical, and the rest in horizontal. Some of the video in vertical, the rest obviously horizontal. So I'm gonna do that. People are used to. So then I have a template for every listing. Every listing, the web page for the listing is gonna look the same. So one of the things is, if you're a seller, you don't want to think of, if you're hiring Andrew, and say Andrew is a typical real estate agent and he doesn't like spend money, but he does sometimes, you're not going to be thinking, is Andrew going to give me his A package or his F package? You're going to be like, okay, Andrew, it's like if you go to, I mean, this is sort of cliche, but like if you go to Tiffany's, everything is going to be like Tiffany's, whether it's something you spent for 100 or 50,000. It's gonna have that quality, and that's what we want to create.
Something that I always kind of like admired about you is your ability to find great people to work with. And besides the video, like, every agent tends to try to do as much. This is kind of where this whole problem kind of stems from. The agent would go there, they would take the photos on their iPhone, they would go shoot the photos on their iPhone, video on their iPhone, they would write the listing description, they would enter the listing description, they would do all of this work by themselves, and you do things a little bit differently. So like, where else do you kind of see yourself as like, hey, this is how I orchestrate every single listing? Where else do you invest?
Yeah, so I think the value would be if I can tell people how to do it the cheapest way, right? Or
Yeah.
So like, okay, so we hire, like, okay, if I go to a house, I'm gonna take like some photos of it just so I remember the house. Say I'm at the listing, I understand, I want to remember that master, or I guess primary bathroom has 2 sinks, a shower, and a tub. Stuff that I'm not going to remember later, but I also want to visualize, not just write it down. So I'm going to take these I guess informal photos of the property. Then after that, I'm going to probably hire a professional copywriter. So you can go on Fiverr, Upwork, or whatever. And you said like, you complimented me about hiring the right people. I've made so many mistakes. You hire the right people by either asking people that have hired the right people, or by messing up. And I messed up and for so many times, and then later I'm like, maybe I should just ask someone, And so like, if you're an agent and you want to write a description of a property, you can go to ChatGPT, and we're using that now a lot on listings, because it gives us an idea, but it's not that easy to just say, write a description of this property. You could actually make it cool. And so I got this idea yesterday. I haven't told you this, Andrew, but this is my idea. Since now we have someone on our team that can sing, Jade can sing as well. I'm gonna go to ChatGPT. I'm gonna say, write a rap or a song using Jay-Z or Beyonce or whoever, maybe country, depending on the demographic of the person. Here's the description of the listing, and write a cool song about that. And then we're gonna have a song. And then if you use AI, you can have someone even sing it,
Yeah.
And I had ChatGPT write a rap about the team, so it sounds like Drake wrote it. So you could be very creative. So say you have a listing, you take these photos, you remember the house, you go home, and you're like, how can I write the description? Just as you do it, you'll get better at it. You could say, write an engaging description of this home that typically this type of buyer will buy, that are looking for this, and make it 800 characters or less. So you'll have that. You have your listing description. It'll give you multiple different, options, and then you can make it better or whatever, however you edit it. And as you do it, you'll get much better at it, and the AI will get better. So after that, I'm gonna tell the photographer or videographer, hey, I want to capture this video or the photos so it would engage people that are looking for this, right? So we're trying to create a cohesive story about a property so the people that are most motivated to buy it will be engaged about it. I don't care about these vanity metrics if I get a ton of views or not. I want to get the people that are most interested in it to watch the whole thing or most of it. I don't care if I get 67,000 3-second views or 15-second views. It doesn't matter. The odds of them buying are very, very limited. So those are some of the things that we do. And, if anyone wants to dive deeper, I'm sure they can ask Andrew or me to go in a little bit further.
You said something a lot of different ways, but it meaning the same thing.
Standard.
What I mean by that is you talk about how you research who the potential buyer is, you shoot the photos in the eye of what the potential buyer would be most attracted to. You tell the story in the way the consumer would be most attracted to. It's this thinking like the consumer that I actually really admire you for, and it's one of the biggest things that I think separates you from a lot of other agents is you think about the consumer. You don't think about just the homeowner or the seller. You think about the actual end customer, which is the buyer. Where did that, I was curious, where did that come from? Or was there a time like because I imagine you probably didn't always think like that.
Yeah, great question. It's funny because I remember almost the day that I learned it. So it was a Sunday, and it was a Sunday, I had to work. So I was, on Saturday night, I'm thinking like, damn, man, I got to work tomorrow. And then I thought, I questioned myself a lot, as I get older and more experienced in life and trying to be a better person each day, I try and question myself instead of someone else having to do it first, and I'm like, who the hell do I think I am? Tomorrow I'm going to show a property to this really cool guy in South Beach for a $3 or $4 million properties, these expensive properties, and I'm so blessed that I live in a place, what I'm doing tomorrow, where I can get paid a ton of commission if I sell it. And even if I don't, there would be a ton of people in the world that would pay a lot of money to do what I'm doing tomorrow. And get a grip of yourself, It's not like you're not like doing a roof tomorrow in like Phoenix or something in the summer. And so from then on, I was like, okay. Then I dug deeper into it. I was like, okay, so before this person is actually asking me for this home to see these places, they've probably spent hours thinking about first looking at buying a place, so you don't just one day look up properties. You alter your life a bit to be able to buy properties, or you've had experiences in your life that have made you want to buy something, right? So I'm thinking like, okay, so this happened in their life where they're probably thinking about buying a property for a long time. Then all of a sudden they go online and they're spending hours and hours of looking at properties, probably being disappointed a lot, because usually our perception of what there is a lot different than reality, because we watch these TV shows and we see these properties. You see 4 properties, you look at one, you buy it, and then you're done. It's obviously way different than that. So then I thought, okay, these people are spending hours and hours getting excited about properties, calling about properties, and then they're sold or not available, they can't be seen. And then they're excited that day about seeing the properties. I gotta be able to like sell that sizzle, make them feel good about it. I have to pretend I'm them, and I've gone through all of that. And if I do, it's gonna be a lot more pleasurable experience for all of us, not just them.
We've changed from a market where homes are essentially could sell themselves, is what a lot of homeowners would say, to a market where homes are taking 60, 70, 80, 90 days. And it requires a lot more of the agent as well as the homeowner in order to get the home sold. So I was curious, how do you get the homeowner to think like a consumer and not just think like a homeowner who's trying to sell their house so their house can actually get sold?
Yeah, so it's diving in. It's asking the questions, right? So I'll give you an example. So say, Andrew, you're selling your place. I'll be like, Andrew, I know you're selling your place, but where are you moving to next? You tell me, whatever. And I'm like, are you buying there? Are you renting? And what are you doing? Typically, it's buying or renting, right? And I'm like, so how have you been looking at homes? How have you been doing it? Figure out what you're doing. How has that experience been? Have there been homes that have caught your eye more? And then maybe I ask them, like, why are you selling now? Why are you doing it? When you're buying, what are your expectations? When you see a property and it's priced at this price, what are you hoping to get it for? When you see a rent for that, what are you hoping to get it for? Why are you hoping to get it for that? They tell me. I'm listening. I'm writing notes. After doing that, then we get back to their house. They're thinking like a consumer because I'm asking them like a buyer or a tenant. I'm not saying, hey, seller, think like you're a buyer. I'm asking their experience, And if they have no experience doing it, I would say, if you were one, it's not that difficult if they haven't done it. And I would say, if you're a buyer now and you've heard everything on the news and you saw a property priced at that, what would you do? What would you hope to do? If I ask them and they tell me, it's way more powerful than me telling them, hey, you need to lower the price because the market sucks or whatever and all that. It's just asking the questions to make them feel. I have to sort of like, if you look at it, it's like they got the VR glasses on and I'm hopefully getting them to virtually go through those scenes and walk through it, and it's whatever with their avatar or whatever they're going through and doing it. I have to make them experience it. If I don't do that, I'm gonna lose. We're going to lose.
Yeah, that's good. It's not telling, it's getting them to verbalize it themselves and then internalize it because they're the one saying it instead of you're actually saying it, which kind of brings me to a funny, because I remember we were talking about like your wife and how every time like she would come to you and vent, because we were talking about like me, Amy, she comes to me and she vents, and I was telling you this and you're like, you told me about a story. I think you could probably tell a little bit better how you kind of changed the way you approached it. So my wife rushed me, who I love tremendously. And February it'll be 8 years since we were married. Only wife ever, never experienced this before. So like the first 6 months to a year, like with most marriages, and hopefully yours is different, but you've been married a bit longer now, I think. And so they're tough times, right? And like I'm usually on time, like probably 99.9% I'm on time. Or if I'm late, it may be a minute or whatever. But it's not easy for me. I struggle to get there, So I know how it is when people are late because I'm fighting that time every time I'm going to an appointment. And the reason is typically because we think we can accomplish more than we can, not that we don't give a crap about the other person's time, right? And making them wait. So with my wife, she's a little bit worse at time than me. And so in the beginning, it was tough, it was tough. And then there was an important thing that we were supposed to go to. And I told her and I said, make sure you're not late. This is very, very important. And we need to be on time. And my wife and I, we share our locations just for safety and on our iPhones and stuff. So I knew that she was going to be late that day. And I knew we were going to be at least 30, 40 minutes late. And I knew it was important, but I could, figure it out because I knew that she may be late. And so she came home. She was scared. She was worried. And she got ready and she came down the stairs and she looked at me. She was expecting me to just yell at her. Not that we yell at each other a lot, but she was expecting me to be upset. And instead I hugged her and I said, thank you.
and she was like confused. And I said to her, and I maybe left this part out with you, Andrew, but like I told her this. I said thank you, and she's like, for what? I'm late. I said thank you for. I said, I know you worked really hard to only be this late. And I'm not saying that to make it like belittle you. I'm saying I know you did everything you could to be on time. And even though we're going to be a little bit late, I know that you really worked hard on it. And I'm very grateful for you with that. And she had tears, like, as I told her that. And she hugged me tighter. And, you know, it's how we react to things rather than how we are. You know, it's like the venting thing what you said. When someone comes to you, we're fixers. You know, human nature is to be nice and to want to fix everything and make that person feel better. But sometimes people don't want to feel better. They just want to vent. And like, ask your friends or your spouse, before you get into it, I want to really listen to everything you say, and this is going to be way more helpful for me. Are you telling me this because you want to vent? Or is it because you want me to give you a solution? I'm open to both. I want to do whatever I can. It's funny because now my sister will call me and she'll be, I just want to vent. I don't even have to ask her that, so it's funny.
Do you have any idea where this kind of came from? Like your ability to think about things differently, ask questions to like your wife, to clients, like where did that come from any place, or did it just kind of, you just start doing it?
No, it came, you know, I talk about like, if anyone like watches my social media and stuff, they'll see that I talk about struggles I've had in my past, right? You don't just be a happy person. And, when you have times in your life that are difficult, where you have friends killing themselves, and you have times where every day you don't want to be alive. You know, I learned from myself and others that when you want to do harm to yourself, you don't tell anyone. You think about it 100 times a day, and you think about like more than 100 times a day. You think about, for me, it was going in my garage, turning the car on, and that's it. And you know, one day you're lucky because something changes in your life, and you feel you want to live. And I can definitely feel for those that don't want to. You know, I was lucky. When you're suicidal, when you're not feeling yourself, you have times of clarity and most times of no clarity. And I was lucky enough to have clarity during the right time, and I decided I want to live. And from then I'm like, damn, I'm gonna really enjoy my life. You know, I'm never gonna think about anything like that. I'm going to try and be a better person every day. And thankfully from my mom and mentors, and I mean, you're one of them, you know, you're so positive with everything, and you want to be a better person. It's not about the money. It's about what you can do for others. And as you do it, and as your tribe gets bigger and bigger, you become, better at it, because it's a habit. It's going to the gym again, which I need to really badly. 2023, year of fitness. Anyways, but yeah, it's from struggling from other things, and that's what makes you do things a lot of times. It's not because you're born with it. It's because you've struggled, usually.
Yeah, and because you often talk about mental health, because it's really something you care deeply about, and mental illness. You even had a post back in 2017 where you mentioned something that no one knew about you. Within only a few years, 7 of your friends committed suicide. It was like almost seemingly random in that way. How did that affect you, and how did that change you?
You know, it's interesting, 'cause sometimes like we're used to saying it's funny. This isn't funny. This is interesting. Like I was at Curator, marketing company, as Andrew and a lot of people know, Chris met Jimmy Mackin. I'd gone to a conference, I think it was in Boston. It's called Excellence. And at the end of the conference, Chris was talking. And you know, one of the things we think about a lot is like our why, right? Our why. And I never knew my why. I never knew it. I tried hard to think of it, and I just couldn't think of it. But during like the closing speech, when Chris was speaking, he shared his why, and it was identical to mine. His why was doing things for appreciation, not to get the pat on the back, not to get that, but when you do things every once in a while, it's like when you see that you changed someone's life a little bit, or you help them improve in whatever way. It's that admiration. You get it from yourself. You don't care if anyone else tells you about it, but when you see you made that change, it's really, really nice. And during that speech, Chris said that you should share something with the world that you've never shared with before. And because he gave me that speech, that's what got me into mental health. Chris did that. And he probably doesn't even know that. And so I wrote that note. I took time and I shared it. And man, I probably have shared this before, but there were 9 people that had reached out to me after I wrote it, and they were struggling horribly. And there were people I was like, no way, you know. Some of these people were the top agents in the country, you know. Some of them obviously weren't, but it doesn't matter how much you make, what you do, or anything else. We struggle, you know. And from that, Chris helped me, and that's what got me into the emotional health and all that.
Yeah, because you mentioned that we often hold secrets close to our chest that we often don't want to share with others. And with that, like, and going through those experiences, and then you feeling the ability to open up, to allow people to see this other side of you, to, in a way, not vent, but just be vulnerable and talk through the experiences. I was curious, what did you learn, not making light of that experience by any means? What did you learn going through that experience that helped you get to the other side?
That you're not alone, right? And we, a lot of times, we have this idea, I guess, for as like man and woman and whatever, our biggest mistake is that we try and assume things, right? Instead of letting things play out. And like, we think that like by sharing especially being an Indian male, a super conservative family, like where if I'm not I'm the black sheep of my family for sure. Maybe not now, but for sure. Why am I not a doctor? You know, my dad, if I got, like when I went to school in high school or whatever, we had 6 subjects, right? And if I got 5 A's and a B, my dad would be like, why did you get that B? You know? So like as Indians, we're not, at least when I was a kid, maybe a little bit more now, it's more normal, but you know, it's what will society think? You know, how are you making your parents or your family look worse to society and all that? So a lot of times we don't share things, but what you realize, and we spoke about this the other day, Andrew, the unlock in anything in marketing is the authenticity. It's getting judged. We want to be judged, because when we are judged, there's a hell of a lot more people that judge us in a positive way than in a negative way. And if we alienate the people that don't align with us, that it doesn't resonate to, good. It's okay. We want to work with people or have friendships, you know, with people that care about us, that can feel the same things we feel. So yeah, if you're an agent and you're new, don't tell the world how great you're going to be and kill it. Tell the world that you're a little bit nervous. You're going to spend a few hours on a Saturday night studying the MLS and homes and driving through neighborhoods because you really want to get good at this, and you know that when you work with a client, you know how much time and effort they've put into it with the money, the time they spent, and you want to do everything you can to help them. If you do that, you'll probably get way more business than tell the people that you just listed this and sold it in three minutes for 50,000 over.
I'm curious, are there any secrets that you're holding in that you choose not to share?
I'm trying to think. I don't think so. I really don't think so. I mean, I shared the hair transplant, but
which was a pretty big and vulnerable moment for you to share that publicly. But it also, was positive sharing it, right?
Yeah, I think in life, for the most part, if you share anything and you put yourself out there, and I know when I say this, I'm saying me, I know, like, as a female sharing something is different than a male sharing something. There are a lot of crazy people out in the world. So I get it. But if there's like 80% of the stuff I'm sure that we have that we can share that we don't want to share, if we do, it's such a relief. It feels good. It feels good. You have these group of people that will talk to you. I mean, Andrew, I don't know if I told you this. I get random calls from people. Like a few months ago, I was at Publix, the supermarket, with my wife, and I got a call from this random person, no idea who she is. And she said, "My brother's thinking about hurting himself. I watched your video. Thank you for putting that out there. Do you have a minute?" And I said, "Yeah, of course. I have way more than a minute. I can talk for however long you want." I said, "First of all, I'm not an expert, but I'll be happy to give you my opinion." And we spoke for, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes. And at the end of the day, she felt better. I can't take responsibility if anything happens to that person, but what I could do is help someone at the moment and make them feel better for the moment if I can. And if I can do more than that, great. If not, whatever.
Yeah, I want to commend you for being someone who is authentic in a way that the word at this point doesn't do it justice, because it's become such a buzzword that it's like, oh, just you have to be authentic online. And it sounds now, when it comes out of people's mouth, it's like has almost like a negative taste, versus when I see it with you, there is literally giving with zero expectations throughout everything. And you're just someone who lives by that. Now, what's interesting is we're going into what could be a pretty tough next 1 to 2 years in the real estate. And when you started at Coldwell Banker, you entered the field and you said you thought you knew everything, but you knew nothing. And despite all of your mistakes, you still had a great year because the market was going up. But when the market took a turn, it became really difficult for you. And it's going to become really difficult for a lot of people this next year, probably everybody, to get more transactions. We're going to have to do double or more just to get the same result as last year. What are you doing next year to prepare? And what are you telling your team to do? What are you doing for the next 1 to 2 years to kind of build out that next level in your business?
Well, great research. You check everything, so that's awesome. Quotes and everything. But like, we actually started before. We didn't start this year. We started last year in April, and we started creating videos. I think the easiest thing is to think like a consumer, right? Why would someone hire you? What are they looking for? Reverse engineer it. If you're a buyer and you have to move, because no matter how slow the market is, people are still going to have to move, whether it's job, whether the family's getting bigger, smaller, whatever it is, people are still going to do it. So reverse engineer it. If you're a buyer, first of all, think like you're a buyer. What are you going to do? Wherever you live or whatever people live in that area, there are probably certain things that they research a lot, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on Google, whatever. Pretend you're that person buying that home in the area that you want to work, right? So say you're moving out of town, or even if it's local, whatever. What are the things that you're going to be interested in that area? Typically it's schools, entertainment, shopping, stuff like that, things to do and all that. And in your area, maybe it's something different, but dive deep into what it is. And then those are topics of interest that you can speak about. And it's not that difficult. If you want to work with listings, what you can do, there's this really cool tool that I know Andrew knows. It's called the Redfin migration tool. So if you Google Redfin migration tool, and since I'm in Miami, I can go on there and I can say, okay, people that are anywhere in the country that are looking into moving to Miami, where are they searching? So Redfin's migration tool, Redfin is a real estate website, and a lot of people look on there because it's really good, and they do searches for homes. So Redfin has shared this information with us where they'll say, okay, everyone that's looking to move to Miami, this is where they're coming from. So I have that data where it could be like New York, it could be LA, it could be whatever. Right now, at this time, I looked at it a couple days ago. The number one, in the past it was California, different parts of California. Number one is New York, New York. It's like 20-something% doing searches in Miami. And the other cool thing that Redfin does is they also have like something that says, where are Miami people looking to move to? And it'll share that. So maybe having those affiliations with those agents in those places, saying, based on, the analysis I've done, I see that a lot of people from my area are moving to where you are. And you can have a relationship there, because potentially they can send you someone too. So start creating content about these areas, about what these people would be looking for. And don't think of your job. The biggest fail you'll make being a real estate agent going from this year, next year, and beyond is to think of yourself as a real estate agent. Think of yourself as helping someone move by giving content that they would be interested in. Be a marketer, not a real estate agent. If you're like, okay, think of yourself as like Nike or Gatorade and figuring out who wants to buy your product and how can you get it to them. And that's the content you're going to create. But just think of it as real estate. And if you do that, you will do well. And be patient. Things take time. Because honestly, whether you do any of the stuff that I say or none of the stuff you say, it's probably still going to be hard, right? You're probably still not going to, if you do what I say, I guarantee you 1,000 million %, you're not going to do worse. You're going to do better. You're not going to do worse. If you do nothing, you're going to do worse. If you do what you're going to normally do, if you're not doing anything, if it's the normal stuff that other agents are doing, you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle. But if you think differently and you do things that are coming from contribution, you may do better than you did the last 2-3 years.
So I wanted to kind of go through a quick list. When it comes to your marketing, sales, prospecting, what are 3 strategies or things that you're going to be executing on the next year or 2 years that you're really excited about doing more of or doing?
Yeah, so one of the things, I was telling you this, Andrew, like I bought a DJI drone mini. I don't even know the name. It's like a Mini 3 Pro. It's this drone, and you can tell how often I've used it. I've never used it. So this year, I'm going to learn how to use it. And not for professional videos. I have professionals for that. But these are for like YouTube Shorts. We're going to concentrate a ton on YouTube Shorts. YouTube is the social media to concentrate on. Some people make money on Instagram. Some people make money on Facebook, but way more people are going to have the potential to make a lot more money on YouTube. So we're going to dive in deeper on YouTube. I'm going to learn how to edit a little bit better compared to 0 skill now. Maybe I'll get to 10 or 15% skill. And those things are exciting to me. I would say this: whatever you do, make sure it's exciting. Make sure it's fun, and don't always talk about damn real estate. No one cares, Think of buckets. Think of like 5 things you really like to do. If you see my Instagram stories, almost every day you'll see me have something about tennis. You'll see sometimes food a lot. You'll see I don't know, just a lot of stuff that has nothing to do with real estate. Also add real estate too, but not the boring crap like I just listed this, I just sold that. No one cares about that. The only people that care about that are the people that are going to hire you anyways. Put stuff that maybe is interesting. And if you do that, you're going to do well. It's going to be fun. The goal is to have more fun and make money, not how the next year or two you're going to make more money and survive. You want to do things that are fun, where I guarantee you this: if you don't do well this year or next year or whenever, you're not going to have a good time if you do nothing. But if you do the stuff I tell you, and that 0.11% chance that you don't succeed, at least you had fun doing it,
And it was funny because you mentioned earlier, it's like your team is going to make close to 2 million GCI, but what was more like fulfilling, rewarding wasn't the money, it was the fact that you were having more fun doing it, and it's going to be more enjoyable for you. And I see you sharing stuff about tennis, food, traveling, collectibles, NFTs. It's almost kind of similar to like what Jimmy's doing, like Jimmy Mackin on his stories. He's sharing like the best ads and stuff that he's every single day now. I think he's going to do it this whole next year, or that's what he said at least. Is just sharing ads that inspire him and marketing that inspires him. And it's kind of similar to what you do. So you mentioned. So are there any like tech or tools that you're excited about using besides the drone this next year, or anything that you're starting to use?
So are you saying tech?
Yeah, any tech.
Yeah, so a couple things. So we've been using ChatGPT, like I mentioned earlier. We're going to get better at it because AI is as good as the instructions you give to it, right? Yeah. So like being creative to the way you engage it is one thing.
It's kind of like a chef.
Right, totally. That's a good way to put it. And Descript, which I learned how to pronounce now. Descript is a really cool tool. It helps you edit. Just to give you guys an idea that have never heard of it. So say you do this video. So say like Andrew puts this video in there, the file of this video in there. Within like a few clicks, maybe 1 or 2 clicks, he can get rid of all the filler words, the the uhs and whatever, and it'll get rid of those, and it'll edit the video as well to get rid of that. Another cool thing that Descript does is if I forgot to say something, and this is a little bit scary, because it has enough of my voice recorded, I could write down text of what I didn't say, and it would say it for me in my voice. So sort of cool. So that I want to use. So those would be like the main things. And so like a lot of AI type stuff are the things that I'm going to do and try and get a lot better. And YouTube Shorts is going to be another thing.
And AI is going to be big. ChatGPT, in my opinion, they're coming out with the 4th version next year potentially. And ChatGPT was what the internet or MySpace, it's like that defining moment for AI and everything where things shift in the world. So what's interesting is I find people like you, people like Chris, people like Jimmy, and like me, like we become kind of what we consume. Like we're a culmination and a combination of everything and all these bits and pieces that we gather from the internet. And I was just curious, who are some people that, not people necessarily, but it could be anything. Like what do you enjoy consuming, whether it's a newsletter, YouTube, podcast, Instagram? What are things that you enjoy seeing tweets pretty often?
Yeah, so it's funny. So some of the things are a little weird, not super weird, but a little bit weird. So of course, like Chris Smith, I love his newsletter every Tuesday, the Chris List. Gary Vee, almost daily. Jimmy Mackin, love his stuff as well. As far as weird, since I did the transplant, I watch a lot of before and after transplant videos, because I see the happiness in the person, because, I mean, obviously, Andrew, you probably can't relate to this because you have so much damn hair, but it's like seeing before and afters, the before and afters, like when we get a home and we stage it and we do that, it's a before and after. I like that. The transplant thing is before and after. Like watch tennis videos and stuff, and just all sorts of food. I know it's the year of fitness, but man, I really like watching that food stuff. Those are things, and getting inspired by like following other agents, that really resonate with us. It's really good. I know, like, Ben Moss, he's like the sports and entertainment guy at Compass. He's the main guy, and I think you work with him, Andrew, or have worked with him, one or the other. But with that said, don't have ego in real estate. I remember years ago, so Ben has probably sold the most athletes in the country. And years ago, when I was not a new agent, Ben really resonated with me. Super nice guy, kind guy, worked with athletes, sold luxury. And at that moment, I'm like, I need to meet this person. And at that time, I didn't really do open houses. I stopped doing them. And, thankfully, I didn't need to. But one day I went to him and I said, I wasn't on his team. He didn't know who I was. And I said, hey, Ben, if you ever need someone to host your open houses, you don't need to give me anything. I would be happy to. And from then, I became friends with him, and I have a friendship with him. And so my whole point is, I know you asked me what I consume and stuff, but when we consume things, sometimes we want to like get to know these people better. And reaching out to people sometimes works if you offer something, not trying what's in it for them, not what's in it for you. And sometimes these relationships become amazing as well.
Yeah, goes back to what you were saying earlier, giving without any expectation of return. And it's not just about finding inspiration, it's like, how do you get yourself closer towards that inspiration? And for you, it was like, how do you get closer towards Ben, build that relationship, and then you're able to start to like learn or just have him in your circle. I was just curious because I know I find a lot of inspiration outside of the industry. I was just curious if there's anything outside of the real estate industry that you find a lot of you pull inspiration from.
Yeah, so I think most of the things are from outside the industry. Gary Vee, of course. The thing is this: when you find someone that you like listening to or watching, you could, like all these websites or YouTube, they're going to show you similar profiles of people. And there are a lot of people that I would listen to. In the past, I was in the car business, and this was back before Grant Cardone was who he is today. And I would be inspired by him. Today, maybe not so much. He's sort of polarizing, which is good and bad, but he's super smart, and from him I've learned a lot. So getting inspired by people outside of the industry is probably more important than inside the industry. So Jay Shetty's great because kindness and all that. Gary Vee, I keep saying his name over and over, but he's done so much. I like Chris Smith because even though he's in the industry, he talks about stuff outside, just like Jimmy Mackin. They talk about stuff way outside the industry, and I think because I follow them, I'm able to get those inspiration from outside the industry without having to find someone. Another thing is How I Built This by Guy Raz. It's a podcast, NPR. It's incredible because he interviews people that have done the most amazing things. So those would be the things that have helped.
Nice. I want to thank you for taking the time and just want to thank you for being authentically you, getting us to think differently, getting us to market differently, think like the consumer, and really bring in elements of storytelling rather than just being boring marketers and boring real estate agents. So I just want to thank you for inspiring me. You're someone I always look up to because you're doing things differently.
Thanks, Andrew. The only negative about like storytelling is it makes our interviews a lot longer.
That's true. Thanks for coming.
Thanks.